Welcome to Sitting with Sallie. I have Pam Cross with me today, and we're going on a journey that she and her husband Brad Cross went on for the past 5 years or so. And Pam's going to talk about her role as a caregiver. I think it's going to be both enlightening and at times difficult, but I think it's an important discussion to have. Welcome, Pam.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, delighted. And as I mentioned, we met at a seniors fair where I had a little wheel talking about power of attorneys.
Yep.
You came up to me and said, Brad and I got power of attorneys 6 months before we needed them.
Yeah.
I remember that very strongly.
It was something, this whole journey was something that I didn't know how I was going to handle or react to. But I did know that when my husband was diagnosed with a form of dementia, that for some reason it went off in my brain, I've got to look after us. It's now up to me to make sure we're not taken advantage of, that all the legal entities are in line, and that we can move forward, not worry about those kind of things, just be able to kind of travel on this journey.
So you sort of did the legal stuff quite early.
Yeah, it all started in around 2011, and I honestly thought he had depression. He just became quiet and just not the same vibrant man that he was.
And Brad was 60 at the time, and he had just
Yeah.
closed his business.
He was just closing his business, and he'd lost 2 close family members in a short period of time, and I just thought depression. And in 2012, in January of 2012, we went on a trip to Puerto Rico for 3 months, and it was the first week we were there. We were sitting on a beach, and he looked at me and said, "Is this Lake Winnipeg or Lake Manitoba?" And that day my heart dropped, and I realized, oh my God.
Something's very wrong.
Something's very wrong. I look back on it all now. I probably saw something more than that in 2011. I've stopped beating myself up over that.
That you didn't see it sooner, you didn't.
Yeah, I mean, and it wouldn't have helped it wouldn't have changed anything if I'd known something was wrong. So our trip in 2012 was really difficult, but I stayed with him and literally right beside him, knowing that I was afraid he was going to get lost in Puerto Rico. And we got back in March of 2012, and I begged him for the longest time to go to a doctor, and he wouldn't go. And this is when you start to realize that things are happening quickly, the change of personality I was noticing. And,
was Brad at this time accepting that something wasn't quite right, or was he saying there's nothing wrong?
There's nothing wrong.
There's nothing wrong, leave me alone.
There was nothing wrong, yeah. And one other quick little story, in April of 2012, I came home one day from work, and there was a note in the kitchen that said, "I'm gone. I'll keep in touch." So I phoned him on his cell, and he was heading out west to get a job. So there was nothing I could do.
And this, you would know, this was out of the blue.
Out of the blue. 3 days later, he came home, and I never asked him what happened. I never asked him where he went. I do know he made it as far as Saskatchewan because he brought his remote control from the TV back, and he had brought the key card for his room back. So I knew he was there, and the next morning he woke up and he said, "I think I better go to a doctor. There's something wrong." And I never asked him what happened. I figured at that point there was no use. He went to the doctor, and they took a CT scan, and they came back with a dead spot in his brain. So they knew it wasn't Alzheimer's right away. It doesn't show that early as a dead spot, but it was quite a significant spot in his brain. So now we're into May, June of 2012.
So it wasn't Alzheimer's, but they were telling you it's some kind of dementia.
A form of dementia.
Were you surprised?
No.
No.
Not by that time. And that is when I decided we need to look after power of attorney and living wills and make sure everything's in order. And one thing I did learn by very nice people telling me these things, when you remove yourself from the emotional aspect of all of this, and you look at it you try and look at it logically, things I didn't know as the wife, and it could be the other way around as the husband, make sure both names are on everything. Make sure both names are on the property. Make sure you have a joint bank account. This way, when things do go wrong, and you know with any form of dementia, it's going to get worse and there is no cure. You're just covering yourself and making sure that these situations will not have to be worried about.
It's just easier. If it's a joint bank account, it's easier. You don't have to take the power of attorney forms. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, you said when you look at things objectively and take the emotion out, that's easy to say. I don't think it's that easy to do.
I don't know how I did it. I just kind of went in a mechanical mode.
This is what I got to do today.
Yeah. And maybe that's my personality. It probably is my personality to know it has to be done. Mm-hmm. Once all that was done, then the more emotional aspect of it comes. You become so angry. And that was the biggest thing I had a problem with. You have to learn how to accept, which in a sense is absolutely impossible to do.
And who are you angry at?
All of it.
Everyone.
All of it. I was angry at life. I was angry at Brad. I was angry at whoever's power is stronger than me that this is happening. And it was interesting. I started a journal when we were in Puerto Rico and wrote everything down. And I'll just, a quote that I wrote, and this was in June, and I came home that one day, and we sat on the deck. This was June 7th, and he began to tell me that he knows this is moving fast, and he doesn't want to live here anymore in Kenora when it gets worse. He told me to put him away in a home where he doesn't want everyone to see him and pity him. We cried during the whole talk. He doesn't want to burden me. He said, I'm young, and the rest of my life can't be looking after him in the state he's going to be in. He isn't sure he wants to be put on meds to prolong the inevitable. And that was one aspect of this disease I never thought of. Wanting to make it go faster so that you don't have to live in the hell that he knows he's going to live in.
And was that an area that you disagreed about the meds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only because now that the journey has come to an end and Brad's life is over, I look back on it all and I think that was very selfish of me to want to extend his life.
Because you weren't ready to let him go then.
I wasn't ready to let him go. Yeah, and I wrote that right in my diary, that he's the love of my life and I'm not ready to let him go.
That sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did he go on some meds or did he decide no meds?
He did go on meds. We noticed a little bit of change in his personality, just that he became happier.
Less anxious?
Yeah, he became a little calmer, but it didn't change the progression of the disease.
And was this something that you could see progressing like week to week? Or
oh yeah.
It was very fast.
It was going very quickly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was June 7th. And by July, by July, he was really angry. So you could see that he knew it was happening. But there's also something very strange about any form of dementia. They know it's happening, but then there are times they don't know what's happening. So you can't get angry at someone that can't comprehend it.
It's almost like he steps in and out of it.
Yeah. He did.
Yeah.
The summer of 2012 was very difficult. And I think it was me having to learn how to cope with it. And I learned through this whole process and having someone go through this in front of your eyes that it's me that had to change. He didn't have the ability anymore to do that. So I can't put my expectations on him. I can't put my wishes on him. It is me that has the ability to control, and it's me that has choices. He doesn't have a choice anymore.
And you don't even realize probably that you have expectations or wishes until you're sort of putting them out there?
Yes. Actually, when I look back on the whole journey, when I read my diary, I actually look back on it now and think how very selfish I was, because there's no one out there to tell you how this is going to progress. Yes, in a clinical way, we know how it progresses, but in an emotional way, I don't think we really know how to live with someone that's literally losing their mind. And I think the best thing I did for myself was every time I felt that I was mad, and it was a lot of times, I would picture that CT scan in my brain about seeing the dead spot, and then it would make me think, all right, pull back, Pam. You can't be angry with someone that
Doesn't understand.
doesn't understand it.
Yep.
And they sometimes do understand it, and then it just disappears again.
Yeah.
So
It's back and forth in
Yeah.
a way. Yes.
This was the whole progress of 2012, and it got it got worse.
Brad
faster and
got
faster.
worse, but it sounds like you were working on acceptance. And did your anger still stay there, or were you able?
Anger was still there.
Okay. anger was the
still
fuel
there.
that got you forward.
Oh yeah. There are a few pages in my diary where the pen actually goes through a few pages because I was so angry. And I think, I know I was angry that our life was taken away from us. And I know a lot of people have this happen to them too, and other ways with cancer, and so many awful situations that happen with people. And with mine, I just felt like it was only happening to me, that I was the center of this awful trip that I was going on.
Yeah, that makes sense. We're going to take a short break.
Okay.
And we'll be right back. Welcome back to Sitting with Sallie. I have Pam Cross with me, who's talking about her journey with her husband, Brad Cross. And just before break, you were talking about how angry you were at this life with Brad being diagnosed with dementia, but then you got another whammy.
Yeah, 2012, the disease was progressing very quickly. And on December 27th of 2012, he had a massive stroke. We were flown to Thunder Bay, and the neurologist, very surprised to see this fit man having a stroke, asked how his health had been, and I told them about the CT scan and diagnosed with dementia. And after some more testing, he thought that maybe Brad was a patient that had cerebral amyloid angiopathy. In layman's terms, an amyloid is a waxy protein that attaches itself to the blood vessels in the brain, starving them of oxygen, so the brain dies. So that's what was happening to Brad. We stayed in Thunder Bay for 2.5, nearly 3 months at St. Joe's Hospital doing therapy, and he learned how to walk again and learned how to talk again, but there was massive damage to the brain, and the disease seemed to be now rapidly moving. And straight from St. Joe's Hospital to Crest we went on March 7th. So now 2013. So now a second new chapter started for me. Brad, it was strange. He didn't really comprehend, I don't think, why he was really there. He never asked to go home. I never took him back home. I figured if he didn't ask, why upset the apple cart? But now I had to learn how to communicate and accept this new life with him in Pinecrest. And the first day we arrived in Pinecrest, I think, was probably the worst day. It was funny,
For you or for him?
For me, yeah, selfish again, for me. we took him in and we got him settled in his room. And I remember coming out, looking at all the people in his ward. He was in the lockdown ward. And I said to myself, he does not belong here. Looking at all the people that had different forms of dementia and different stages of dementia. And I thought, oh my God, how can I leave him here? He does not belong here. I got home, and after my first really big wailing cry in over a year, I realized that he did belong there. It was me that didn't belong. It was me that now had to learn how to fit into his world, because he can no longer come back into mine. So it's my responsibility.
And so you were living in two worlds then?
Yeah, I had the world outside of Pinecrest where I had to try and look after myself and still go to work and try and find a new life. And then I had a life in Pinecrest with Brad. And I wanted, for some strange reason, I wanted to be a part of Pinecrest. It was his home. So in order for me to be a part of his life, I had to make it my home too. And it actually wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be, because the people there were phenomenal. They just were so loving and so accepting, and of Brad and myself. So they did slowly become a family.
At one time, when we were talking earlier, you told me about how you learned not to use the word should.
These are all little things that I started to recognize while spending lots of time in Pinecrest. Again, you have to get rid of our logic. It doesn't exist anymore to Brad. So you can't expect his behavior to be what I assume should be the right thing to do. The word should can have a very negative connotation to it. When you say, you should go and brush your teeth, as opposed to saying, wouldn't it be nice if we went and brushed our teeth? Little things like that you started to learn. Another word that was a bad, was a trigger word for Brad was the word no. And you could replace it with the word thank you. It might not make sense to us, but to him, and I noticed it with other people that were in the ward, it all of a sudden changed the whole demeanor. It changed the whole tone of any conversation if you say the word thank you as opposed to the word no.
Because if you say thank you, then they've done something nice.
Exactly.
Yes.
And these are all these little things that you slowly learn to do and slowly learn to accept in this new world that you're living in.
You also mentioned to me earlier about time.
I lost concept of time. People say that's common. I didn't know if it was Monday or Wednesday. I had no idea. Sometimes if I was there for an hour or 4 hours, I would have no idea. I think one of the things that really helped me was I went to therapy. And I started that immediately when I actually went to the Alzheimer's Society when I was living in Thunder Bay. I stayed with Brad. But when I came home, I went to the Canadian Mental Health Association. And they were a phenomenal support for me. Phenomenal.
And just the Alzheimer's Society, although it's called is for any kind of dementia.
Any kind of dementia, yeah.
And then you got started sort of getting information when you were in Thunder Bay.
Yeah.
And then here you had your own counselor.
Yes, which was probably one of the main reasons that I made it through.
Okay.
I would think.
Good.
Just having someone that is not judgmental, compassionate, there to listen to you. You can't expect your friends or your coworkers to have the time to do this. That's not fair to put the burden on them. And I think therapy is so important for people. It helped me.
Good.
Tremendously. So as the years go by, he was in Pinecrest for 3 years. And as the years go by, you watch everything happen, from someone not being able to learn how to eat. He could walk when he first went in. And after 2 years, the brain wasn't telling the body how to move properly, and he ended up in a wheelchair, and he had to be fed, and he had to have someone brush his teeth, and he couldn't do any normal functions that we take for granted. He couldn't do himself.
Could he talk?
That was slowly disappearing.
And did he know who you were?
I think till about the last 6 months, I think he did.
So things keep on going
Quickly.
down, down, down.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, we're going to take another short break, and then we will be right back. Tune in. Welcome back to Sitting with Sallie. I'm talking with Pam Cross, and we're talking about her journey with her husband, Brad Cross. Brad died November 13th, 2016.
Yes, he did.
It's not that long ago, but you've had a bit of time to look back, and how do you think you managed to get through those 5 years?
I don't have a direct answer to that. I don't know how I did. Sometimes I don't know how I did. I knew I always would, and I don't know how I don't know why I knew that. When I look back on my journal, and Brad was still of a mind where we could have a good conversation, he did tell me that I'm young, and he doesn't want the rest of my life to be looking after him, and that I have to get on with my life. And the relationship the two of us had, and the kind of person he was, I know he'd be really angry if I had wallowed in self-pity and not moved on. I also find that in the last 5 years, I've changed a lot. I'm not as selfish, and I want to learn more about dementia, and I want to tell people more about this kind of journey, and that, yes, you can make it through, and you can still have a strange life with this person. It changes from having to talk with someone as to, I noticed how the look in someone's eyes, or to touch someone, how valuable that is, and how you can feel a connection with someone. I could feel a connection with him just with touch.
And basically, you at some point moved from anger to acceptance, because that's what you're talking about, is acceptance.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I still can't believe it happened, but I know it did. I think it will always upset me that this was the path that his life took, because for me it just still wasn't fair, and never will be fair, that his life ended the way it ended, and at such a young age. My life is still fragmented. I'm trying to figure out where I want to go in the future. One thing I did write actually quite a long time ago, and I wrote, a negative mind will never create a positive life. This journey can destroy you. It can also bring some amazing people, love and compassion into your life. You just have to let it in.
And it sounds like along the way you did have quite a few people that were able to help.
Yeah. I leaned on family, a few incredibly close friends, and the staff at Crest that just became a new family for me. And they brought joy into Brad's life, so I could accept it a little easier, seeing him smile the way they made him smile. And you just have to let it happen. You can't control it anymore. You can't stop it. There's nothing to fix it. You just have to try and believe that somewhere along the way he will find some happiness.
One day at a time.
Yeah.
Really.
That's
yeah.
a hard one to swallow,
It
one
is.
day at a time.
Yeah.
Because I was constantly looking into the future, thinking, what's going to happen with me?
Well, and there is no real future.
For him, no. You're
No.
watching someone slowly pass away. That's a hard thing to watch. And you just hope at the end that they're comfortable and they're not in any pain, and that maybe they can have a smile on their face. I hope that no one has to ever go through this, and I know they will. And I know as this group of baby boomers are coming up there. This is going to be a big, big challenge for our medical system and for people to handle. I just hope that more people can talk about it so it's not so scary, because I was so naive to all of this. I had no idea what this journey was.
And you probably wouldn't have been interested in knowing before either.
I think you're right.
I mean, again...
Medically, I knew about it.
Yeah, but again, until people actually confront something.
No, it's nothing. I would not have wanted to know how his journey is going to go. But then there are other times I wish I'd known a little more to be prepared, so things wouldn't have been such a shock every time the changes happened.
You had to go through the grieving process all over again?
When he passed?
Well, or each time the dementia
Yes.
went down a little bit,
Yes.
down a little bit.
Yes, you're right. You would get used to him on a certain plateau, and then he'd drop, and you never knew how long it was going to be on that plateau. He eventually, which we thought would happen, he aspirated. So he swallowed food into his lungs, and he had pneumonia. And they asked me if I wanted to put him on antibiotics, and my answer was no, we're not going to extend his life, because it's not a life, it's just an existence by this time. You're just breathing. And he didn't want to be like that, and I knew he didn't want to be like that.
Have you ever thought about writing
Yes.
this up? Yes,
I have.
No, I think it's an important, incredible journey for you. But it's like you say, it's important for other people to have a bit more information about it.
I would like to write. I'd like to speak more about it too. It was interesting. I did give a speak at Pine Crest one time, and someone asked me, how do I deal with survivor's guilt? And I said, I've never had it. I got home, and I wish I could find that gentleman again, because I realized I'd never had it because I never allowed myself to be happy, so there was nothing to be guilty about. So that's something that I've got to work on, allowing myself to find some joy again. And it'll come.
Yes, I know it will with you for sure. Thank you you very much.
Thank you for having me, Sallie. Thank you very, very much.
And thank you for listening to Sitting with Sallie. It's been quite a journey, and I'm glad that Pam was able to share it with us. And Phil, I know you're watching, so I'll look forward to hearing from you.